Sun's up, looks okay. The world survives into another day, and I'm thinking about eternity. Some kind of ecstasy got a hold on me. I had another dream about lions at the door. They weren't half as frightening as they were before, but I'm thinking about eternity. Some kind of ecstasy got a hold on me.
We had a couple hours to kill before Conrad's lecture, so we decided to hang out at the GCS offices and tell some stories about Cascadia and how everyone got involved.
I worked in the federal building downtown, and what I wanted to do was be an environmental policy person.
Yes.
I wanted to work policy.
Good for you.
Yeah. So I just said, I'm done with Seattle U. I'm out of here. I'm going to go fight the fight and protect nature.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant.
So the question has been asked, when did I first hear about Cascadia? And I can put it into the year 1987. I know that that was my second year at Seattle U, taking every philosophy class and history class I could. And for some electives, I started taking classes from McCloskey.
Right.
And I loved it. And so I ended up actually getting a minor in Soch with a double major. And every free class I could was from McCloskey, and it was in his ecological ethics, nature writing classes that he started bringing in his maps of Cascadia. And
so those were the early hand-drawn.
They were the early hand-drawn ones. And I
bet
would
you still have one.
I do. I've got one in my office.
Oh, that's great.
That I've kept since he gave it to me in 1988.
Right.
And that's what inspired me, and I was fascinated. And as I was saying earlier, I now know that having gone on to do more graduate work and all that, what was happening is laying the foundation for being a geographer. I just didn't know it.
Right.
But that was an incredibly important time because he gave me the opportunity to explore, to be free, to think critically about place. And then it wasn't just conceptual and abstract, but it actually was incredibly lived. Mm-hmm. So we had this dialectic going on. We were in the classroom. He was sharing his ideas. He was testing his ideas with the students, those that cared, those that heard the calling.
Yes, yes.
And then we'd go out into nature and we'd go hiking. Awesome. So it was this
dance.
That's
a beautiful thing about it.
Yeah, it was this dance. And I never had a teacher like that.
Yeah.
I never had a teacher that cared enough to understand how this stuff was becoming appropriated in my soul. Mm-hmm. So that's when I first heard of Cascadia, and that set the foundation for everything I've done since.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Yeah, how about you?
Dave was a best friend before Cascadia was even thought about, except as a term by Bates McKee. As a geographer, you knew Bates wrote the book called Cascadia just before plate tectonics took hold.
Right.
And
he was still looked upon with suspicion.
Yes, exactly. And so Dave and Jim and I, Jim Riley, Father Jim Riley, were best friends and mainly went hiking. So I took a course from Jimmy called Modes of Inquiry, and we, oddly enough, the first time that I met Jim, we were in McGill Holdrick House, and we were having a kind of a colloquy, and a discussion among classmates, people who were going to take this course, Modes of Inquiry. And sides started to part out, and Steen Halling, the guy with the big furrowed brow from Scandinavia, was on one side and holding down the fort that life is serious, and then there was Jim Riley, the Irishman. It's like, no, life is play. And so that became the topic of conversation that came out. So I went over and sided with Jim.
Interesting.
The only guy.
Yeah.
Everybody else is like, oh no, life's serious. We better say that life is really serious. So let's all be over here with Steen Holland. By the end of the night, we had everybody over on our side. And then I ended up taking Modes of Inquiry as my first course, a 400 level course at CLU, and then and just loved Jimmy. We just became big buds, and then I said, God, what other courses are out there? This guy David McCloskey just came back from Berkeley, and he's offering a course, and you should take it. You should take his everything. Okay, great. I'll go take Dave's courses. And so I first went into him, and then the three of us got together. I began, okay, let's go out and go hiking and go walking and go talking and just kind of sharing this great universe of ideas and playing games with each other.
What year was that roughly?
77.
Okay.
We just spent, years together, and they became my best friends, Jim and Dave. And that's when I think our first big hiking trip, like a big overnighter, was to the Marble Mountains in the northwest quadrant of California.
Okay.
Still within Cascadia.
Still within Cascadia. We didn't know it at the
nobody
time.
thought anything.
So it was
about
calling you.
it at the time.
It was claiming you.
Yes, very much so. And after the hike, we came down out of the wilderness and needed a little decompression time and went down to the beach.
Yeah.
And it's the beach right at the corner of Oregon and California. It was right on the border. You walk back and forth. And,
Gold Beach is to the north, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the road.
Yeah. And so we lit a big bonfire, and there were 5 of us, and we were reading T.S. Eliot's 4 Quartets, and by the fire. And I had a friend had gone back to college, and a friend had given me the book and honors program. I will hold to my dying day that it's the greatest work of English literature. Now, everybody will argue with me in various ways, and they can if they want. Yeah. But for me, T.S. Eliot's 4 Quartets, the culminating writing of his lifetime, is it. And one quartet is more than the human mind can possibly tolerate in one sitting, and so we have to get up and go for a walk, run, and David is an inveterate Frisbee player, and so that's back to this sense of play.
Yeah.
Because the 3 of us, that's all we did is play together. We'd play, and then we'd walk and talk, and we'd talk philosophy and history and sociology and anthropology, and we just had these wide-ranging topics that we could all pile together.
Peripatetic School of McCloskey.
Right?
Yeah.
And exactly, and so we would go, and we found that if you could, there was an onshore breeze, and if you took the Frisbee and got it up just right and threw it, you could get it just to hover on the onshore breeze and just sit there, and then it would come back down on the beach, and then you grab it, and we each would try to toss it up there and see how long you could get it to hover, and then grab it as it came down. Yeah. And so we're playing, and okay, so then we sat down on the beach, and there was beautiful stones on the beach, and so we were kind of hanging out, sitting, talking, and we'd pick up a pile of rocks, and we'd start playing with them, and we were making kind of sense of the world through these rocks somehow, and little.
Were you trying to design a geography?
We weren't sure. We weren't sure that what this geography was, what this place, what this. It was sort of informed, maybe, if you will, by Hermann Hesse's glass bead game, right? So these were the glass beads, and Hermann Hesse's glass bead game was really something more than you could actually hold in your hand.
Right.
It was musical notes, it was Bach, it was art, it was like great thoughts of civilization somehow symbolized by a glass bead, and how you put them together was the Magister Ludi, was the master of the game. Ludi is the present participle for playing, so the master of the play was what the glass bead game was all about. And so here were these guys, and I'd met Jim Riley over the conversation on play. No, life is about play. Right. And then David's favorite thing always is his definition of a life being well lived is you are outdoors with your friends at play, right? And that's life. And so here we were, and we weren't certain what we were doing with these stones, but later on what it became clear as we started to piece together other stones was we started to piece together the poetry. And David his mind is so amazing that he would have these great generative ideas and pull together. Right. And so, as you know, like when you go hiking with him, he didn't know about plate tectonics and geology, and he just gathers it as you go, and all of a sudden we're out hiking.
Super intuitional.
So that's how cirques work. So that's a terminal moraine. That's a marginal moraine. Okay, I'm getting it, And as you're hiking it, you're understanding where you are because the place is speaking through you. Yeah. And he was always attentive to the place speaking through us and informing us of where we are and what we're doing. Yeah. And so one of the ways that we started to do that was with this poetry. And so the poetry, you'd weave together all these lines of the various poems, and it would be the 4 seasons. It would be day and night would be 1 and 2. You'd kind of have rhythms, day and night, 1 and 2, and then the 4 seasons coming in, and then east to west, and then the seasons of life and love, and youth to old age, and so you'd play with each other. And so David said, okay, so we're going to break this down into 4s. We're going to do, mountains, earth, sea, and sky. Mountains, river, sea, and sky. Yeah. And so then, and he would gather together out of the Cascadian poets 1,000 poems, and he'd hand them out to us and go, okay.
Yeah, I remember that.
So edit it down to 366 poems.
He handed me that monster somewhere like 87 or 88. I mean, just this magna opus of poetry. Yeah. Yeah, it was incredible.
Right, and I had various empty houses that he would use for either I was up crab fishing and I'd give him the Magnolia house, and he would go over the front of the living room and just poems everywhere, putting them together and
into these anthologies.
Yes, and then our place up in Desolation Sound, we did the same thing with this giant long table that we had built up there, and setting out poetry in the galley house. But somewhere along the line, through his thinking, he came up with this notion of bioregionalism. He learned about and stumbled into that with Peter Berg and with all of those guys and with the poets, Robert Sund and Freeman House. Yep. And Dave became involved. I was out fishing, and he and Jim became involved with the first bioregional Congress. Prior to that, David will tell you all about this, but his bioregional gathering, the Cascadian Gathering in Bellingham. And then the first bioregional Congress, and then I got involved with the second bioregional Congress.
And what year would that have been, roughly?
88, 87, 88,
okay.
In there.
Okay.
Before,